I'm just going to go ahead and put things here instead of there. What are you going to do? Hurt me? I'm just going to shave my head and paint it purple. What's going to happen? You're not going to hire me? You don't want to be my friend? Who cares? Nothing is more painful than what I've been through. Hit me with it. Try and come at me with any kind of torturous pain. I will recognize it and I will throw it right back in your face. Yes, you are impervious on some level to...
Welcome to Zestful Aging, the podcast where we celebrate aging with vibrance and we defy the stereotypes of what it means to age. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, a psychotherapist of more than 30 years, here to introduce you to my off-the-mainstream guests who will energize and inspire you. My hope is to create optimism about getting older and help you cultivate zest and joy in this season of your life. And I love to hear feedback from you, my listeners. Please drop me a line at zestfulaging@gmail.com. I read every single comment. And to find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. My guest today is what we call podcast royalty. She's a podcasting Hall of Famer, a corporate speaker and comic, and the co-founder of She Podcasts, which started as a Facebook group and is now the largest podcast platform in the world. She's been featured in Forbes and Entrepreneur as a visionary for women and non-binary people in the podcasting world. I met Jessica at Fest, which is a big podcasters convention in Florida a couple years ago. And I was attending one of her sessions and I was just struck by her honesty about the challenges she was still experiencing years after her daughter's fatal overdose. And of course, as a therapist, I'm always thinking about how we can survive the unthinkable. What are the qualities that keep some of us persevering while others just can't? So the combination of her enormous drive and success and her ability to endure the unthinkable made me want to talk more with her in depth. And I'm so grateful to have you on today, Jessica Kupperman.
Thank you so much. I am honored that you asked. Truly, thank you.
Yeah, I've been following your meteoric rise, back in the day, and it's really fun to see what's happened to She Podcast. I remember like little Facebook stuff, and it was all friendly and it was lovely. Mm-hmm. And then like you're showing up at these podfests and bringing in women and really presenting things that are unique and oh my gosh, just so
thank you.
Yeah, spirited, and like you and Elsie just seem to have this just love for the women podcasters and like let us bring you in, our fold. And it's I think it's really different and really needed because
Thank you.
It's hard out there, right? It's
absolutely
stuff out there. Yeah. Although I understand podcasts are getting much more popular now that people don't want to watch AI generated Facebook posts. Is that what you're seeing?
I read today that, so there's a company, I forget the name of it, and I don't know that I want to give them your audience, but there's a company that produces only AI podcasts. And I read today that this week they released 325 new shows.
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot of AI for you.
Oh,
a lot
of pollution grinding out. Yeah,
it feels like that to me because it's already hard enough to find a show that you dig without having to rifle through AI. Yeah, I mean it's worse. The Facebook posts are bad enough.
Yes, it is truly slop. And I know we have a mutual friend, Alex Sanfilippo, talking about how do you, I've been on his show a couple times. And how do you differentiate yourself? and it seems to me in my world too, as a therapist, people are going to AI for therapy. And what does that mean? What's missing?
I will confess that I have done that on some level as well.
Uh-huh.
So we can talk about that if you want. But
Okay.
the way to differentiate yourself in a sea of AI, you have to be very careful, because I've also fallen down the trap of making an AI twin for myself.
Oh.
That I mean, I actually can make it talk and do videos for me, but it looks ridiculous.
Oh,
But
wow.
I do use it for headshots, because I mean, I recently just, my hair right now is bleach blonde pixie cut.
Yeah.
So I've been using it because I don't have a lot of professional pictures of me. Definitely not any of me
Oh,
talking with this haircut. So I've been using it for
okay.
that. But you have to, even there, you have to be very careful that you use real pictures of yourselves. They're not, you can't use an AI picture to create another AI picture, because it just makes your teeth on your
Look like a
forehead and
freak.
weird stuff like that. Yeah, it's just weird.
Oh
Um,
my God. You've
then I have to,
always been an early adopter, haven't you? I mean,
yes,
this is who you are back in the day.
yes. I mean, here's the thing. I love using ChatGPT to like help me solve a problem, like what's this thing on my toe, or how do I get my kid to shut up, right? Like those are the most extreme examples. I apologize. But like I love using it for information and knowledge without having to interact with another person who you may or may not trust. And for me, the
Mm,
medical field is, it's like a 50-50 for me. I
mm,
mean, actually in
mm,
Delaware, it's more like 80-20, because for some reason our healthcare is just amazing here. But in
mm,
general, I don't trust those people for various reasons, because
mm,
mostly because they're human and make mistakes. So,
mhm,
but I don't like the idea of flooding. It's one thing to search for the knowledge and get it right away, instant gratification. It's quite another to have another podcast about midlife or menopause
mhm,
made by a computer, that another computer, that wrote a script, figured out a
mhm,
background. Like, how, I don't want generic advice. I don't want to hear
mhm,
or see, and I don't want to. I have enough time trying to find my friends' posts through all the ads and
mhm,
sponsored and suggestions.
mhm,
I
mhm.
don't want to have to go through AI influencers and AI advice givers and AI salespeople on top of the ones that are already hawking me
Yeah.
for whatever.
Well, what I found, and I don't know if like this is just my bias, is I find it soulless. And
Mm.
it just even like I have a friend who uses it because we have this creative hub we get together. Oh, she's
Hmm.
probably just
I
going to
use it a
listen
lot
to
too.
this. Yeah, but I can tell it's AI, and it just doesn't feel
Yeah.
text. I don't know what the word
My
is.
dad can tell, which I was just
You
like,
can. Oh,
no,
that's
you can't.
interesting.
He said,
That's
here's
interesting.
the trick. If it has a lot of words but doesn't say anything, you'll know
Oh,
it's AI, because
that's
they're very
interesting.
wordy and descriptive, but not a lot of information.
Not that's really interesting.
I
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
I
I'm
can't believe you even
hoping
noticed that.
that's great. I'm hoping that, there people are feeling what it's like. And I've had that feedback, but like when you're really getting into a conversation, that human connection, I don't think can be matched by anything, any machine learning. But that's my bias. I'm a therapist and I'm in my mid 60s, so I have my own way of thinking about it. But you've been an early adopter. You are just a badass in like going, making stuff, trying other stuff. I've really sort of followed this, and some stuff has worked, some less, and all this stuff. And I'm just wondering, so we have this like real did you feel successful? Have you always felt like, I've got a lot on the ball here? Is that part was that has that been part of your identity?
Yes and no. So I have an unconscious bias that you're not really successful unless you're wealthy.
Okay.
And because podcasters are very DIY, take it and run with it, they don't spend too much money on classes, courses. I mean, they did want to come to the event, but my understanding was that was mostly for the networking and the camaraderie and the community, and less
Okay.
about, I mean, I'm sure they learned a lot. I'm not going to say that. I mean, I had hundreds of speakers, so I don't want to say that that was not worth their time, because of course it was. But I have learned through She Podcast other ways that I can feel successful while still being broke. Lucky me. No, I'm not broke, but I mean, but
Yeah.
I'm not broke, but we've tried a lot of things and we've made a little money here and there.
boy.
We used to make $1,000 in, what's it called? Patreon.
Yeah.
We've made money with advertising.
Yep.
We made money with a conference. We've hosted lunches and have made money on that. We've
Yeah.
done little workshops at other conferences, but it's like here'sy there'sy. It's not a
Okay.
consistent revenue. I am in the process of launching something else that I hope will create instant revenue. Digital downloads for podcasters, for when they're, if you need a rebrand, or you need like forms for your audience, or if you're a coach like
nice.
yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just
Okay.
templates that you can open in Canva and customize,
That
that are
sounds
pre-done
smart.
for you. I mean, and I'll just run ads to it, through a custom audience on Facebook, and hopefully it'll bring something. But for the most part, over the last 2 years, I've sort of thought of She Podcast as not financially successful, but still successful in what it set out to do, which was support women and non-binary podcasters. And also being able to partner with big names is a key of success.
Yeah, you have.
And being featured in magazines and on podcasts is another, but again, if you're someone like me who, like my dad had his own business and I watched him hustle his whole life, and I've had my own business since 2004. I am convinced that unless my bank account is, like, you don't have to look at it, wealthy, then it's not, then I haven't quite reached it.
I
Even though
understand.
I know that's a lie. Even though I know that's a lie.
But so you're influential. You are, how shall I say, you're a go-getter, all of this stuff. And I'm just trying to put together this picture of how complex we are as women, maybe also as mothers, and really want to get at this idea of resilience, because I am sure that when you were undergrad or doing your stuff, you didn't think you'd have to deal with what you eventually had to deal with in your daughter's overdose.
When I was undergrad, I changed my major 3 times. I didn't even know what I was going to do.
Uh-huh.
I've always tried. I feel like I've been picking my major my whole life. I changed it twice: English to journalism, and then journalism to communications, which I guess was the right goal, since that's what I do for a living now.
Yeah, they're all
roundy,
related,
the same,
adjacent. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I really never thought. I am stupid, to be honest, but I really never thought that. Like, even as she first time she went to rehab was for an alcohol problem. And I really thought, because she was in high school, I thought she's going to go and she's going to come back, and then she'll finish high school and everything will be fine. But she never came back. She had a lot of mental health issues that I didn't know about until she was an addict. And even now, this year, my son was diagnosed with high functioning autism. And now I know that a lot of her little artistic quirks were autism. She also was high functioning autism and sensitive to, loud noises, and afraid to go to a buffet by herself, even though she was 19, like things like that I just thought she's just being quirky. And she was very artistic. And so, she would be very fussy about how she looked or things looked. And again, I was like, I mean, she's being unreasonable, but she's an Aquarius.
Also, she was in that age range where they're just such a pain in the butt in general. And you're not a mental health professional. Just
not even close.
Right? You're just a well-meaning mom.
It's true, but we also know so much more about autism that she died 10 years ago. And even since then, our level of knowledge has, especially in this subject, has changed enormously. And I think it's actually, the more I read about it, the more I feel like, I mean, first of all, every time I read an article about the brain, it says there's always so much more we don't know about the brain, which does not console me, by the way.
Yeah.
But it does make me realize so much more about her and the way her brain was working, and how in some ways I supported it without even knowing. And then in other ways she was probably suffering. And I mean, one thing about autistic people or kids, if you're trying to raise one, is that they do things that logic does not, like, there's no explaining it. And so, like my youngest, most recently, when he was a little boy, he would find something in a parking lot and make friends with it and put it in his pocket. It's trash. Why do we need trash in our pocket? Like, I'm like, throw it out as trash. Yeah, phooey. And he would be like, you know how I see things alive? It's my friend. I was like, no, it's not. This is a gum.
This is the son who you will often post some of his quotes.
Yeah, the Daily Isaac. Yes.
Because they're hysterical.
Yeah, he's hysterical.
Yeah, he's funny. Well, hi, Zesties. In addition to being a podcaster and psychotherapist, I'm an avid thrifter. And I think it's something you either love or you hate. I've always loved finding treasures, and it makes me happy to keep things out of the landfill. You may already know that fast fashion is a real scourge on the environment. And I have a few podcast episodes that explore this. One of my favorites is with Eric Minter, who's the world's authority on the secondhand market. His book, Secondhand, is really recommended. And here I'm digressing. The reality is that I love to thrift, but I also like to wear the same basic outfit. So I've started an account on eBay I wanted to tell you about. Here's a humble brag. I have an eye for quality pieces. Linen and cashmere are my favorites, and I'd love you to check it out. Go on eBay and type in Nikki's Thrifty, and it's NICKY 'S Thrifty with a Y, and see what you think. I'd love your feedback. So there's that, and so parenting this. I mean, let me back up. Now with 10 years of perspective, how do you understand, Jessica, how you were able to get through this? I guess that's what I think about when I think about our listeners, who many of whom have had horrible tragedies, and just wondering what might be somewhat helpful from someone who has gone through it.
I mean, this isn't going to be that helpful because it's a unique situation. But when she died, my youngest was like almost 2 or just had turned 2. And he was the happiest, smiliest, again, quirkiest baby. And so I did not want to ruin his childhood experience with this. So I explained it to him in stages the way he would understand. Like, at first I said she took the wrong medicine. And it made her heart stop in her sleep, and she died. And he was able to deal with that for long enough until, then around 6, there was a further explanation that it was like medicine that wasn't, because she's like, well, why would she die with Tylenol? And I was like, it wasn't Tylenol. It was someone else's prescription. And then, it would get, now that he's 11, he understands, and he's wildly angry about it. But anyway, so I had a baby that would wake up every morning happy to see everyone and exclaim it was the best day ever. Every day was the best day ever. And like,
there's a meme for dogs, that says that. But
really? That's my son. That's my little boy.
Best day ever. Yep.
And so like, who am I to argue with his best day ever? So there were days when I would wake up and take him to preschool and then come back home and stare at the wall until he came back, and then give him a nice dinner, and then we'd give him a bath, and then his dad and I would play with him, and then he would go to bed, and the whole thing would start. So like, I don't want to say I was masking, but it gave me a reason to not fall apart completely.
You had to keep going.
I had to. I didn't. It's not his fault that she did that. I'm not going to make him suffer for that. I mean, maybe I did in other ways, because I know that in some ways masking has, like, there was probably periods of time where he didn't feel emotionally close to one of us because we were distant, not able to feel intimate with anybody. Like, there's a period of time when I don't know, like, there was just so much in her dying that made me just not want to give of myself emotionally. So but he luckily he's very emotionally mature, and he can stick up for himself and say, "You never want to do this with me. I needed," and I just would look and I'd be like, "Yeah, other people are having family vacations. Could we at least try to go somewhere for the sake
Okay.
of this kid?" Because we would
Uh-huh.
just, but when you're grieving intensely, the emotional capacity is so small, and even now it's very small. If he's having like an autistic, um, I guess I'll say episode where he's stuck and he feels like no one cares about him or no one's listening to him, he wants to perseverate. He wants to
Mhm.
persevere on his downtroddenness, and I can only listen to it for about a half hour and
Mhm.
apologize for a half hour before I'm like, okay, you have beaten me up now for a half hour. I have heard you. I apologized, and now this is going to have to end. He's
You
not
have to
ready for it
shift
to end,
gears.
but I just can't be beaten up for an hour. I can't. I
Mhm.
will not.
Mhm.
It's
That's so
probably not.
classic, right? With
Yeah.
autistic kids, they just get stuck,
Yeah.
and you can
Exactly.
almost see, like, the brain seizing up, and, yeah, something needs to just be snapped at.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, and also there in some ways where like because of so the pandemic happened, he was 5, and that was scary, and we were still dealing with because that had only been 3 years prior. There was nothing else to do except give him whatever, like if he want a new toy, you're bored today, let's get it from Amazon, let's get it from Target, let's have it
Mhm.
delivered. So we kind of created a little monster who can't be told no without therapy.
Mm.
So, and
Mhm.
now that I know he's autistic, I can say it in a way that makes him feel heard and understood. Where before I was like, I'm not buying you another thing. I cannot buy you another thing. You are
Mhm.
9, you are 10, you are 11. Like, this is over. We have
Mhm.
to fill our time with, being resourceful and independent and creative. But it's not like I woke up and thought, like, for him, it wasn't gradual. It was like I had gastric bypass, and then all of a sudden I had the energy to sort of like fix my life gung ho.
Oh, I see.
And then when that happened, I started to see all the other ways I was neglecting not just myself, but like no one had changed the water filter, or no one had gotten an oil change. Like everything was like stuck in time, kind of. So when I started moving things again, it got very uncomfortable. But the first step I think for resilience is having the energy. And so after, I don't know, I guess it was 8 years of that, I created a situation where I would have the energy to at least try to fix my life.
Mhm. Did you think that I find this with clients who have had a gastric bypass or sleeve where there's a lot of unexpected emotional and psychological ripple effects. Did you find that?
Unfortunately, yes. I
Because
did.
you wrote a Substack about it.
I did. And I'm actually going through right now because I've gained like 20 pounds back. And so I'm realizing what kind of a mind twist it is, because I was a size like 22, 24, and then I got down to like a 12, 10, 12.
Mhm.
And it's almost like my brain can't comprehend, or maybe I'm even uncomfortable looking at myself that thin. So it's like you almost gain weight because I don't know. It was almost like I was afraid not to have that padding. Or, I mean, I did crack a rib once. Like, once I got really skinny, like I was on an amusement park ride and I cracked a rib just from
Oh.
being on it. And I was like, oh, maybe this, and then also when you go shopping, like I can't try on anything below an XL, even if I know it'll fit. It takes coaxing from a friend to be like, that's too big. No, that's too big. No, that's too big. Right before I had this sleeve, I had to cancel a conference because I didn't make enough money. And I was grieving that. I was grieving, but also when I woke up from this surgery, it was like, I'm never going to be that person ever again. I just knew that I was never going to go back to burying myself under whatever it was that I was burying myself under. And so it does kind of allow the grief to come in, but it's also
Mm.
like, this is the one thing that I can control, because tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll have no underwear that fits. But today I can get this thing out of my face, but I can't control, I couldn't control her dying. I
Oh,
couldn't control
gosh.
failing this event. I couldn't control
Oh.
this or that, but this is one thing I can control. So I think it was more about like, it's like when
That's
you're
what
stuck in any
OCD does.
problem.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
When
when
you're
it
stuck in
pops
any
up.
when you're stuck in any
Mm,
problem, I always try to help people focus on what is one thing you can do. If you're waiting for something
mhm,
to edit or transcribe or download, if you're waiting for an answer for someone, find something on your list that you can accomplish,
mhm.
and then it will help you wait for the thing that you're frustrated over.
I remember that event, actually. I remember you
Yeah,
guys talking about it, and I thought
misery.
to myself, "Wow, that's a pretty big deal." That was
It
before
killed me.
COVID.
It
Did
killed
it?
me.
Oh
No,
gosh.
the one before COVID went. I did two successful ones. It was one that was supposed to be in 2023, and I had to cancel it. I rescheduled it twice and then canceled it because I just couldn't raise enough money, probably
Oh,
because of
okay.
the pandemic. Um,
Mhm.
but I signed a very expensive contract with the hotel, and also I felt humiliated, and also I felt guilty because I had taken people's money for tickets and sponsorships, and it had all
Oh
planning the
gosh.
event, and I had nothing to give back to anyone. I just felt like, it was like a year of me feeling like I stole from my community and they hated me now.
Oh
Yeah,
my
the face thing
gosh.
was all of that. It was all the things I couldn't control
Mhm.
and how I felt about myself as a person for a little while there, which was like, why would anyone take advice from me?
Mhm. You
How
talked
can I?
about that off mic about being a mom of a kid
Oh,
who's
yes, I
struggling.
feel very unqualified to this day, in fact, about being a parent in general. So that just made
Mm.
it worse. It makes
Like,
it
well,
worse.
yeah, like somehow if I would have been a better mom, my kid never would have gotten addicted to the most
Yeah.
addictive thing possible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If I wasn't such a pushover, if I thought everything, again, I was very stupid and I just assumed things were going to be fine, that I could trust her and her mental health and her capacity to, decipher right and wrong or what is too much, um, what's the word? Temptation in the moment.
Mhm.
Um, and I couldn't.
Did
I
you feel supported by school and I'm just curious
No,
in your
not school.
community?
She had an IEP and a 504, and back then it was like pulling teeth just to get them to comply.
Oh, I
Period.
see. Well, it's still like that, but
It
yeah.
is, yeah, I know, but I mean, I guess I don't. My little one goes to a private school, so I don't have to deal with it as much. But he's dying to go to public school, and I am refusing to allow it because I just know, with their lack of decision making as to what they'll allow be part of a plan and what they won't comply with, like I don't feel
Mhm.
like dealing with that again. I'm like, it got to the point when Emily was in high school where, like, if they saw me coming, they would like hide
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
because
such a I mean, there that whole IEP thing is a nightmare.
it is,
It because 'cause you're begging.
or insisting or
Mhm.
threatening.
Yeah,
And
all
then
of
when she
that.
would get in trouble because one of her things, one of her needs weren't met. For example, don't call on her to answer anything in class because it makes her wildly anxious and uncomfortable. And someone would call on her and then she would storm out of the room and then she would be detention, suspended. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
but right here, it says you can't do this. Always it was on a Friday. So I couldn't like fight it for a Monday.
oh, I see.
Like I'd find out at 4 o'clock on a Friday and just be like, you can't suspend her for this. But then it would be Monday and it was too late. She was already suspended.
Oh, well, and
Yeah.
not helpful, right? Because now she's at home.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. Anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it really does make you feel like, because one thing you can say when you give someone parental advice is, I mean, look, at least my three are still alive. All my kids are still alive. If
Mhm.
you can't say the most basic thing to comfort yourself, it just becomes humiliating. It's just humiliating.
And the question of like, "Oh, how many kids do you have?" And
Oh,
people
that's
will
annoying
say,
too.
well, it depends how you count. Yeah.
So when she died, my I guess she's my stepbrother and sister's grandmother, but from not the side that I'm related to, if that makes any anyway, is an old woman who her youngest had been sober 20 years and died at age 40 from an overdose. And it had been recent, like not 5 years after him.
Mm.
And so I saw her at a family party and she said, you know what I say when people ask me how many kids I have? I say I had 3 children, this one this age, this one this age, and this one would have been this age. But they
Mm.
sadly passed away. So she kind of taught me like how to converse about it. And so I do some version of that. or I
Mhm.
don't mention it until it's relevant. So like at first I'll be like, my boys, and they just assume I only have boys. And then
Mhm.
if something about her becomes relevant, I'll say, well, I actually have an older one, but she's no longer with us. And then I try and glaze over it as fast as possible so they don't feel bad for me enough to miss what I'm saying.
Oh. So what has it been like, doing this Substack? It looks like this is a fairly recent thing, and you are just bearing all. I mean, you're talking about every aspect of and also, like, how shall I say, like, the play-by-play, but with these details, right,
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
so intense. They just bring the reader right there. Like, you could smell it. You could take, you're like there, you're in it, and thinking and hearing your thoughts and some of the like non sequiturs that
Yeah,
you're coming
right.
up with. What's that been like 10 years later to sort of revisit Emily's death and write about it in this way that also is humorous?
Um, everything that I see and experience for whatever reason comes through a humorous lens. Maybe this is also high functioning autism, but like I I see when things are just ridiculous. And I have to point it out because it makes no sense, even sometimes to my detriment, because things make sense for a scientific reason or a logic reason that I'm not aware of. I just think, why, like, for example, like you said, we have been talking earlier a little bit about women that enhance their face.
Mhm.
And all I see are women that look ridiculous.
Mhm.
Their faces are too angular. Their lips are comically big. It's
Mhm.
it's just insane looking to me that would even remotely look normal to anybody. I don't understand. And so it's things like that. I just see the ridiculousness in everything. So and her death was no exception. There was so much ridiculous going on. Much of it because of mental health, but just stuff that I couldn't explain in the moment or didn't understand why it was happening. Like I did a Substack about how like the day after she died, people sent in so many rotisserie chickens, and it was like all I could
Right.
think about. All I could think
Chickens.
about was like getting rid of this chicken, even
Yes.
though they were like here to comfort me. And I'm like, yes, but would you like some chicken?
Yes.
Also, would you like some chicken? So it's been fun. I've been wanting to tell those stories in some capacity for a long time, and I haven't. My podcast with Elsie Escobar was about podcasting for the most part, and I think she wanted to stick to that more than I let her. um, and then there was really no other venue, and also I have so many other stories that aren't about Emily, or that are about her. But like one time, like someone stole her phone, and like we all tracked it like a vigilante group to the person, and drove over to get it while she cried in her bedroom. Her brother and her stepfather and her father and I like drove over and tracked the kid
Oh my
and
gosh.
got the phone back. And that's kind of, and also I've kidnapped her a couple times without her out of rehab and stuff. I haven't gotten to that at all, but there's all kinds of little stories that are just human interest for no other reason than like, and I also feel like only me, the ridiculous things only happen to me. And I think it's because I can express them and communicate them in a way that other people,
The
people have,
absurdities,
yeah, like
yeah.
people go to the hospital and if you don't see your nurse for an hour, like they just kind of sit and watch TV and don't think about it. Where I'm just like, a test came back wrong. I'm definitely dying. No one wants to tell me. Like my brain just starts doing stuff, or I'll just
Mm.
stand in the hallway and wait for the nurse and piss off everyone at the desk because I don't know, you know, just I think sometimes people think a certain way so that they can express it and make other people feel less alone. And so that's kind of
Mm.
what I'm trying to do. Like
Mhm.
when it comes to death and addiction and parenting and business and humiliation and hair and clothes, like all of it is a trial, but most of it is also ridiculous. Just
Mhm.
ridiculous. I'm just going to go ahead and put things here instead of there. What are you going to do? Hurt me? I'm just going to
Mm.
shave my head and paint it purple.
Mhm.
What's going to happen? You're not going to
Mhm.
hire me. You don't want to be my friend. Who cares? Nothing is more painful than what I've been through.
Right.
Hit me with it. Try and come
Yes.
at me with any kind of torturous pain. I will
Right.
recognize it and I will throw it right back in your face. Yes,
Yeah.
you are impervious on some level to, I don't want to say disappointment because that's clearly not true, but you are impervious to hurt almost. If someone purposefully tries
That
to hurt
pain.
you, it becomes so not trifling, but what's the word when something is small?
Like trivial?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks trivial to me.
It's just silly at this point. Like, okay, tow my car, whatever.
Like my 11-year-old screamed, "I hate you! You're the worst parent!" And then afterwards, he started to cry, and he was like, "I'm so sorry, I said that." And I was like, "It's okay. The worst thing that could ever happen to me has already happened. You could scream at me all day if you want.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt me.
Right.
I love you. I know you love me. Go ahead, say it again. Say it again."
Do you know about this concept? And it's a bit controversial, but it sounds a little bit like what you're talking about. It's called post-traumatic growth. Do you know about
Ooh.
this?
I didn't know it had words.
It's
but it
a psychological
right.
mumbo jumbo, but what people might say, and some other people are like, that is such a load of crap, but there's a bit of controversy. But it is this idea that you cannot help but transform. You are never going to be the same woman or mother ever.
One of my friends online wrote a book called Second Firsts. Her name is Christina Rasmussen. And the book basically, it's also like, it was buy the book, read the book, and then join this community where weekly they kind of help you. Basically, the concept is when someone dies that's significant to you, you find yourself in like a doctor's waiting room. You're in the waiting room because you can never go back to who you were before, but you might not be ready to become the person you're supposed to be after. You're just kind of stuck there, not doing anything, not talking to anyone. Yeah. You're in personal purgatory because you're just stuck in grief. And then she had something, I forget what they were called, but like little things that you could do to like remind yourself of joy and happiness. For example, if you once liked roller skating, or maybe you could walk in the sand for a day, or perhaps pick a flower, like it was these tiny little things that reminded you that life is happy and joyful in spite of loss. And it kind of helped coax me into at least thinking about who I was going to be now that I wasn't this person's mother, which by the way, had encompassed my entire adult life. Like I graduated from college and had her.
And she was not easy. It sounds like
no, she was a colicky.
You didn't just send her to school and say, have a nice day. You had to.
Well, I had her brother like right after, so it made it a little easier to have two babies instead of one because they could entertain each other. But yeah, she wasn't easy, and I have been a mom since I've been an adult, and also it kind of made me feel like she was never like I imagined her. Because there was life before her and life after her. And that's not supposed to make sense for you and a kid. They're supposed to be a permanent fixture.
Right.
So there was this weird, like, maybe I imagined it all, which obviously I didn't because there's pictures and stuff. But it just felt like, how could she not be here? And then I make her and then she disappear again. Like it never happened. I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, it's almost like forced growth. And that's why I like the concept of the waiting room, because it's like, if you want to venture out, you can, or you could stay here for 5 years. It's up to you. You might be in the waiting room the rest of your life if you can't bring yourself to at least do something to remind you of you and not this person who lost this other person. So yeah, it's like forced growth, but, and people will either grow into a miserable, grumpy, negative, kvetchy, whatever. I can't think of an appropriate word, but you know what I'm saying. Or you can use it to learn about yourself and what things you might like now, what you're not going to stand for anymore from other people. It really helps you. And also, yeah, I mean, like people say as you age, you contribute less F's to everything. Like I give 0 F. But you have even less F's, as you get older and these things happen to you. You're just like, I don't care what my hair looks like when I leave the
Nothing's
house. I don't care if
important.
I have a purse. I don't care if I'm
Yeah,
wearing shoes. I don't care if
right,
I shower every day.
right.
Um,
Yeah, it's a different realm.
yeah,
It's
and
a
some of
different
it
realm.
is celebratory, and some of it is self-deprecating, and but it's still you cannot ever go back to who you were when they were alive.
We
So
talked
yeah,
off
I love
mic.
that concept.
Oh, good. We talked off mic about also attending groups, which sometimes people
Mm-hmm.
find helpful.
Yeah.
What's your experience been?
So I went to an NA meeting, another, uh, another opportunity for comedy, right? Like I went to an NA meeting,
Mm,
and somebody would say their strife and pain, and then everyone nodded, and they went to the next person.
hmm
And when it was my turn, I was like, "Well, these are the things I'm struggling with, and I just don't know what to do." And they all nodded, and I'm like, "Well, is anyone gonna
Help me out here.
give me an example of something they didn't know? We're just here to listen." And I was like, "Well, this is pointless," and I walked home. So that's my group experience. And by the way, it's very funny because Emily also hated group. She hated group therapy. She was so
Mm,
bored by other people's problems. Like she was just like, this is like mental torture. So, and then I also volunteered. There's a nonprofit here called Attack Addiction, and they help raise money and change laws in Delaware about addiction and things like that. Is an absolutely amazing um,
mm,
organization. So I started volunteering for them. And the thing they need the most is running a booth at other events. So mental health events, but we also have like not a like not MLB, but we have like a smaller baseball team here in Wilmington called the Blue
hmm
Rocks. So I would have to man a booth at Blue Rocks games, and there would be a little swag to give out, but then also pamphlets about who to call if this is happening to you or a friend.
mm,
Also pamphlets about Narcan and things you can do if you're watching. Anyway, it was it almost felt great to volunteer
mm, mhm,
for this organization, but it also invites people to come up and just start verbally dumping about
mm,
every person they've ever known or their own experience with
mm,
addiction, which I
mhm,
can't relate to. I'm not an addict.
mhm,
I feel bad for people that are addicts, but also it's not really something I can ever wrap my head around, that you just
mhm.
can't stop something. Even though I recently told you about my face thing, like then it started to make sense to me only then.
Okay.
Before that, I was just like, I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes. I found out I was pregnant. I threw them out the car window. We're done here. It's
Yeah.
easy. It forced me to talk about it's hard to deal with your own pain when other people are sort of like drowning you in theirs, and I'm still
Mhm.
consumed with mine. Or
Yes.
I would have to attend a talk and run a booth at a talk, and the talk was, if you were running the booth, it was in the same room, and so I'd have to hear speaker after speaker talk about
Oh,
how
boy.
wonderful their child was, when things went wrong, how bad they got, and then eventually their demise. And it was like, I'm still dealing with my own
Oh, oh.
story. This is the exact same
Mhm,
story. I definitely don't want to hear it again.
mm.
I'm very sorry that it has happened to other people. And if it's somebody like in the podcasting community, I was always very grateful when they would come up and be like, actually my daughter. It felt like a one-on-one personal conversation, but just listening to people tell their stories about
Mhm.
addicted people dying was like one of the most uncomfortable situations I've ever been in.
It sounds like it wasn't productive. It was just salt on the
Yeah.
wound. Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
there are people who are more extroverted than me who gain a lot from just being in the same room as people where that's happened. But for
Mm,
me, it was just nothing but just depressing. And also, again, I was still struggling with my part in it. And so it
hmm.
didn't make me feel good. It reminded me
Oh,
of
I see.
how terrible I was at keeping her alive.
Mm, mm.
And I just didn't want to hear it anymore. So
Did you ever find anyone who really understood what it was like to be the mom of Emily's mom? Did you ever find any helping people?
that is hard to say. I mean, there have definitely been conversations with people that knew her that I felt could relate to how frustrating it was to try and help her.
Mhm.
And that is more comforting to me, even though they weren't a mother of a grief. Than, I mean, meeting other mothers who are grieving, I think that the way other people grieve can be foreign to us. So some people thank Jesus for all the time they did have with their kid, and and they praise the Lord and it's the Lord's will, and he's in a better
Mhm.
place. And I don't, in the moment when I was having those conversations, I did not feel like I could relate to that. And then
Mhm.
in therapy, when I would talk about it, I had one particular therapist right after, and the thing she would say to me the most often is to give myself grace and to be
Mhm.
nice to myself. But those
Mhm.
aren't really solutions for hating yourself and everyone around you. Like
Mhm.
being nice to me is
It
a
just
nice
didn't it sounds like it
concept.
just didn't even make any sense
I
in a
I
sense.
yeah, I don't wanna be, even if I was nice to myself, I'd still be grappling with this. I need some way through it. So I actually
Mhm.
hired an emotional processing coach, and that has been more
Mm.
helpful than anything else. Someone to that I call once a week, and she says, "What's the thing you want to talk about today?" And it could be, in my head, I'm struggling with friendships or my weight or my children, or I don't like that my house is a mess. And then she'll talk me through like how it's making me feel, because I am classically just putting my emotions in a pocket and never bringing it up again.
Mhm.
So I would have to deal with why this was pissing me off, why I don't feel successful, why I'm struggling to like this concept or this person or this child in the moment. And and at least then I could understand, like, oh, I don't like this portion of it, and then I can tackle that part of the problem that's making me uncomfortable.
Mhm. Breaking
And
it
then,
down a bit.
yeah, at least breaking it down. But
Mhm.
I'm also hugely what's the word? I'm hugely healed by knowing why. If I can't know why, then I'm
Mhm.
I'm frustrated at my confusion and I'm uncomfortable with whatever's happening. And it was just exhausting. So
Mhm.
having somebody help me at least understand what my emotions are in some way, just knowing can help you deal with it. And
Oh, definitely.
in other
Yeah.
ways, you can just realize how stupid it is to feel resentful that you have to walk the dog in the morning when the other person has a job. Like, that's just stupid. Like, I'm just being bitter for no reason. Okay, great. Now I can stop.
Mm,
You know,
mhm.
I probably should go back to a therapist, because I mean, talking to you and having you be a therapist, like, is therapeutic in itself. But
Is it leaking out? I'm trying to
it's
keep it in
it's
check.
no, it's not. It's very therapeutic, and
Oh.
and also just saying it all about, like, the
Mhm.
face thing and the weight thing, like, that's
Sure.
stuff that emotional. That's more like psychological stuff that I probably should get a handle on. It's more than just like processing one emotion at a time. It's like, well, your brain has been through this, and so now you're reverting to this. Like,
Oh,
it's
for
stuff that like a
sure.
therapist would know, that
Yeah.
she's like a
Well,
Martha Beck certified life coach, which is
yeah.
great. But
Yep, I
um,
know about Martha Beck.
yeah.
Is there anything you wanna leave our listeners with in terms of, here you are 10 years later, you're writing these Substacks, and it looks like your rankings are,
Yeah, my ranking ended up pretty good.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, there is. I think I want to tell people that the way to be resilient is to sort of, at least for me, make yourself accountable to someone, even if they don't even realize it, like my baby or my husband or
Mm,
somebody, or Elsie. Elsie was huge. I was accountable to Elsie every week for that podcast.
mm,
It didn't matter how I felt. It didn't matter if I was sad. She was depending on me. And
mhm,
making yourself, having someone rely on you for just something, anything, even if it's
mhm.
volunteering at the dog shelter, will give you a reason
A reason,
to
yes.
move around in your life, even if you're still a zombie.
Okay,
You will have some purpose in your life, like, because sometimes losing someone you love so much can, like, also delete that in your head.
right. Oh,
And
for
I
sure.
think being resilient is forcing yourself through any means necessary
Okay.
to move in any direction, even if it's the
Eve
wrong one.
Even if you
Uh,
don't feel like it,
Even
is
if you
what
don't
you're saying.
especially
Yeah.
feel like it.
You gotta get up and take a shower, and even if you don't
Yeah.
feel like it. Yeah, and there's science, I'm sure you've heard this, motivation doesn't necessarily land on us in this sort of beautiful way. It's a lot of times we have to just kinda grind it out, and then it's like, "Oh, actually, maybe I'll take a walk again. That wasn't so bad." Um, That's interesting.
I don't know if you have to stop at an hour. One of the biggest things that helped me was that event. Like I thought, okay, because she had been calling me, like she took up an enormous amount of my time. So once she passed away, I thought, what should I do with all this time on my hands? And I think people who lose their parents, who are caregivers,
Yes.
that's a big question. If I'm not talking to her on the phone and handling some problem, what do I do with myself? And so even if it's as simple as watching every Renaissance film you've ever wanted to see, or taking a list off of Rotten Tomatoes of every comedy that ever existed and ranking them, like that can give you purpose enough to not waste away that day. Even if you don't shower, at least have something to do that like tickles your mind in a way that, you know, you're not going to do just sitting around feeling sad.
Yeah, for sure.
And I got out of bed every day because I'm very good at numbing. I will force my emotions into a hiding place and never let them out and just joke that I'm dead inside and move on. But after a while, 3 years or so, I started to realize that, yeah, I'm impervious to pain, but also I can't feel joy.
Yes.
Even if I want to have a good time, I can't.
That's it. That's a switch, right? It's not a dimmer switch. It's just on and off.
All of a sudden you're like, I can't even enjoy sex, or I can't even enjoy, like, I can't even like life enough to enjoy the things that are only meant for joy. And that seems bad for me and my children. So I may as well start to figure that out. Like I think she's very lucky that she could research her way through it. And maybe that is the answer right there is, what's your skill? Just use that. And just like, if you are a comedian, make jokes about it. If you're a writer, write yourself through it. If you are, I
was even going to say, not to trivialize it, but I like to knit, and there have been books written on the healing of just sitting there in a rocking chair and just knitting until you can't knit anymore.
There was a podcast about that. There was a woman I know who used to read, she would read classic literature while knitting, and everyone who listened to it was usually knitting as well. And it was like being in a virtual knitting circle, although you weren't talking, you were listening to someone reading like Pride and Prejudice.
Oh my gosh, that sounds interesting. I love that.
I know. I just thought, what a fun concept, because
totally, it can be very healing, and so, stuff with our hands, all of that stuff.
Yeah, drawing. I'm trying to think of like someone who's, like in their 50s who loses like a person who is becoming a young adult, and they're in retirement, or maybe they're at the end of their career. Like, find a new thing. Like if you are in your garden a lot, like start gardening through it. Just garden your way through it.
Yep.
Roller skate your way through it. Drive Uber your way through it.
Whatever.
If you whatever. Yeah, whatever it takes.
Yeah. So, Jessica, where can people find out more about your work, your Substack, you've got a lot of stuff going on.
I do. And I'm trying to get it gathered all in one place right now. LinkedIn, like linkedin.com/Jessica Kupferman is probably the best. I've been working on that the most this last week.
Okay.
And if there's a website or anything for you to go to, you'll find it at LinkedIn. But thank you for asking. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
You take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you so much again. I hope
it was a lot of fun. Okay.
You too. Thanks, Nicole.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends.
Our theme song is All I Did Was Wait for You by Kjartan Abel. Visit Kjartan-Abel, that's KJARTAN-Abel, ABEL.com to hear more of Kjartan's work. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler.
And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest. See you then.